You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey everyone, it's the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast and I'm your host, Dr. Megan Kelly. Today we are doing one of our Behind the Rehab Practice podcasts, and I'm really excited to have Amie Hesbach on the show today. She has a practice called Empower Physio, and we're really excited to hear about all the things that she is doing in her clinic, which is a mobile clinic. Welcome, Amie.
Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for having me today.
Amie, I'm so excited to chat because there's a lot of things that is going on in your life, and we've been chatting a little bit before we started the recording. And I think, I think we should probably just start with that you actually were a human physical therapist first, and then you made a changeover into animals. Just walk us through the journey of how you sort of became an animal physical therapist.
That's a great question, and I think so many of us have similar journeys, and a lot of it relies on us finding ourselves and finding our passion with what we do. I, as you said, started out as a human physio. I graduated in 1997 with my master's degree here in the States, and started working at a full-service hospital in a fairly rural area. So we were providing inpatient, outpatient therapy, home care therapy to adults and children, really across the lifespan with orthopedic and neurologic conditions. Really had my hand in quite a bit of everything. What was fabulous about that was just getting a varied experience and really testing myself as a new physio with regards to trying new techniques and new things. And at that time, too, I felt quite a focus on my continuing education and realizing when I was a new graduate, I really didn't know everything and I really wasn't the expert just yet. So following my passions with regards to continuing education and taking quite a bit of that early on with regards to manual therapies and neurologic physical therapy. I did a postgraduate residency in California in proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. I think I was maybe practicing for 4 or 5 years at that point in time. And that really helps me to develop a lot of my manual skills, my observational skills, and my neurologic expertise. And as I was doing that, I was really kind of exploring things and learning a little bit more about veterinary medicine. I had a dog at the time and I missed her terribly. And I was like, wow, I picked up a anatomy book of the dog and, learned a little bit about animal orthopedics and, just did a little bit of self-study myself. When I returned to Maryland to my previous job after my residency, I recall seeing a ad for a course, a continuing education course provided by the American Physical Therapy Association in canine physical therapy. And my colleague and I looked at this and we said, wow, this sounds so interesting and what an odd idea. And then we saw that it was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I'm like, I don't know that I want to go to Tennessee so much. That's a long ways to go for a weekend course. I'll take a gander at it, but I didn't elect to take the course at that time. And then Deb Taraka, who at the time was Deb Gross, she was actually providing some courses in the area, so in Baltimore, and I was able to take a course with her, and I was sold at that point in time. I thought, this was fabulous. This is definitely what I wanted to do. In the meantime, even before taking that course, I had reached out to my own veterinarian and asked him about animal physical therapy, and he being such a small community, knew two orthopedic surgeons or two surgeons who actually were looking for a physical therapist to advise their staff with regards to post-op protocols, mostly knees and hips and backs and necks, but I was able to kind of dabble and moonlight a little bit with them. So it kind of all came together. It was a really interesting time in my career. It was something that I kept a little behind the scenes and hush hush, because it wasn't really looked upon as a field or a area of concentration for physical therapists at the time. But more and more, it became really a legitimate, area for us to focus our practices on. So that was back in 2000, 2001. So it was really on the cusp of things, and was able to establish a network too of colleagues across the US and the world, and, really learning a lot from each other as we grew the field. So long story short.
It sounds like it was just meant to be, though. So everything just sort of fell into place.
It did all kind of fall into place. The funny story was I was dog sitting a friend's Chesapeake Bay Retriever, and this poor guy had a long history of, orthopedic issues and arthritis. And I noticed that he was very sway backed. His belly was like nearly dragging on the floor. And at the time I had taken an NDT course, and I was like, I wonder if any of these techniques actually work on, on dogs. And, just playing around and, handling the dog on the floor, and I'm tickling his belly, and I'm like, ooh, that made those abdominal muscles contract, and, did a little bit more here, and then added a little bit of stabilization exercise. And, and the light bulb really went off at that time. My unknowing patient Orville, the Chesapeake Bay Retriever, really helps me to test, some of these techniques. And, I've relied on that over the years, and trying new things with animals that I've utilized with people with success. And I'm always amazed at how quickly animals are able to be facilitated, and how they respond so well to manual therapy and to neurologic techniques that we can apply to them. So I think we're right at the edge too of learning so much more with regards to physio and how it can help animals too.
So are you just treating animals now, no people, or there's still people involved?
I treat both. I've gone back and forth over my career. I was treating animals full time, and I've always had a love for running and Pilates, and found that even at my workplace, I was working with my colleagues and treating them on the side. And, I'm like, I still love this. I love what I do. I love when my patient responds to physio and is compliant with physio. I think that was kind of a disillusionment that I had in the human physio clinic with patients who are less compliant than not. But when it was my own colleagues and friends and family, and they were asking for advice and willing to take that knowledge and those skills and apply it and see the benefits. So I've actually continued to treat people here and there. It's certainly not a bulk of what I do, but I teach Pilates. I do manual therapy and rehab with human patients as well. Usually runners, some swimmers and soccer players, mostly, those weekend warriors, those of us who are feeling some aches and pains and things after our daily grind gets to us.
So your mobile clinic now basically is a little bit of human and a little bit of animals. Now, there are loads and challenges of having a mobile clinic, so there are pros and cons. Do you want to run through the reason that you chose to be mobile, or was it just something that just sort of happened?
I think mobile, I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I felt like moving out of the clinic, I was able to control things a bit better. The time that I was spending with my client and patient, that one-on-one was huge for me. And I really felt like I could have a conversation and work as a team with my client without a lot of interruption. The overhead, keeping that low was key. And really throughout my animal physio career, I've encountered clients who are frustrated with the time and the energy and the effort required to get the pet into the vehicle, to take them in the vehicle for the drive to the clinic, to spend the time waiting for the appointment, to be in the appointment, to get them back in the vehicle, get them back home. I mean, it's a 2, 3, 4 hour ordeal depending on the distance from the clinic. And I thought, well, gosh, if we can eliminate some of these things, make it less frustrating for the client, make it more comfortable for the patient, and then really see the inner workings of how things work at home, and make interventions immediately. I'm totally sold on doing mobile. Sometimes it's inconvenient for me with regards to traffic. I live outside the Boston metro area, and it can be a little challenging, but it's been truly rewarding for me. And I felt like I've been able to establish a closer relationship with my clients, because they're inviting me into their home. I see a heck of a lot, probably a lot more than they would like me to see, but we become very familiar with each other, and I feel like they feel like I'm more on their side with regards to the interventions that we're applying. I find that one of the challenges is just being a physio and not being a veterinarian, not being a veterinary medical professional. I rely on referrals from veterinarians, and they're putting me in a situation that is safe. But it's knowing those red flags, it's knowing those issues that need to get into the veterinary clinic. I've not, knock on wood, encountered any emergent situations or issues, but if I were, then, that would be a bit of a concern. It is quite a bit of time on the road, but I'm getting better about scheduling myself with regards to my travel time, and being more efficient with my paperwork and administrative work as well. I could say that I miss, having some of the bells and whistles, but honestly, I don't. At this point in my career, I'm so happy to have what fits in the back of my Subaru and have it at that. We don't have any question of, are you going to put my dog in the treadmill? Or are you going to use this bell and whistle and this bell and whistle? It's really up to me and the client. And I found that I've actually had a good relationship with some of the swim and centers that offer water therapy and offer some modalities that I don't offer, in that we can all work together as teammates. I can make the interventions at home. They can handle the water therapy and other interventions, regenerative therapy, etc., acupuncture, whatever that might be. And so it's actually worked out fairly beneficial for everyone involved.
Yeah, it's really great if you have a relationship with the practices around you, and you all work together, because, often, even if there is a rehab practice, there will be clients who will phone and they'll say, well, actually, I can't make those times. It's just impossible for me. And then they can say, well, we've got a colleague who we can send to you or refer, and you can see them. So it's great to have those relationships. You were chatting about your equipment and what you can fit in the back of your car. So what do you fit in the back of your car? So what equipment have you got?
Yeah, I've, when I started out, it was basically whatever I can fit in a little messenger bag, and that included my SpectraVet Class 3 laser. That was the first thing that I purchased, and really probably the most expensive piece of equipment that I have, and the most valuable one. I have a variety of exercise balls and peanuts and Bosus, balance boards. I tend to pick and choose my equipment based on my patient load. I have a small TENS neuromuscular stim unit. I use a lot of kinesiology tape, and some of the instrument tools, instrument assisted therapy tools, really whatever I can fit into my bag, but it's fairly minimal. the equipment that I do have. I don't find that I have to carry anything very large, which is fortunate, especially if I have to park a bit of ways away from my client and walk down the street carrying a physio roll and, and my messenger bag. I want to make it convenient for myself as well. So.
Yeah, I just had a vivid image of you carrying 2 balls under your arms down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can be a workout myself, but it certainly draws a bit of attention when I wander in and down the street or into someone's home and carrying things or setting up cavalettis in the yard for the dog. It's an interesting situation for sure. So, but the equipment and the overhead again is incredibly minimal, which is refreshing to me. It's so nice. It's easy to maintain too. So much less not worrying about pool filters and those types of things. It's very nice.
Yeah, I must say the barrier to entry to have a mobile clinic is small because, you don't even need a laser. You can just have a little bit of sort of exercise equipment in your hands, can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's it can be so simple. It's interesting. I think, I don't know about there, but here in the States, we're seeing more and more of the lasers coming into the hands of our clients, whether they have performance dogs or otherwise. There are a lot of class 4 lasers out there, and clients are getting their hands on class 3 lasers. So like you said, it's really not absolutely essential to have that. I think my Bosu is probably my most commonly used piece of equipment. If anything, because it has the kind of the bubbly surface that is great for proprioceptive and weight bearing exercises. And then it has the balance board surface as well. So I utilize that quite a bit.
Awesome. So let's chat a little bit about your week. So how do you structure your week? Do you consult some days and then do admin other days, or do you break it up in the day where you sort of consult in the morning and then do admin in the afternoon and swap it around?
Yeah, that's, it's taken some time certainly to figure out. I tend to utilize 1 day a week for purely admin, and that is very helpful to me. Usually it's towards the beginning of the week, and that it just helps me mentally to prepare for my week and to get my referrals in order and communication in order. I schedule based on location, but I also schedule based on my client's ability to be available. I'm finding that more and more people either work from home or they have flexible or variable schedules. And that's been amazing to me. When I first started doing mobile therapy, I thought for sure I was going to work all weekends, all evenings, and this was going to be such a hardship on my family and on myself, but I find that that's not the case. I have some clients who prefer early in the morning, some late in the day. I try to work 1 evening a week, rarely on the weekends. And I base it based on where the client is. If I can stack things along a specific corridor, then I do so. And I try to time things between appointments if at all possible. But, my clients do understand too that the traffic can be certainly variable in this area. And so they're very relaxed about my arrival time. And I usually schedule my appointments for about 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes evaluations will take a little bit longer, but all in all, we can get most things done then. I do find that a lot of my treatment time is during the day, during the business hours, but then I do a lot of my documentation, a lot of my communication with my clients and veterinarians after the fact. And so I always follow up. I'm emailing and texting back and forth with clients and with referral sources on a regular basis. I think my clients are pleased with that, kind of keeping the loop open and keeping those lines of communication open to the point where it's more of a concierge type of service rather than just an in and out and perform the service and leave. So they have a lot of trust in my skill set and my knowledge and my experience as well.
And Amie, how about your charging? Obviously being mobile, you're spending a lot of time in the car. Do you charge a travel fee on top of the consultation fee, or is your actual consultation fee just escalated to if you were, say, in a brick and mortar practice?
Exactly. I include my travel in with my fee. If I have a client who's reaching out to me from a distance away, outside of my normal treatment radius, I will tack on a travel fee, and I usually leave it up to the client. I said, this is my normal fee. Here's my travel fee. Do you still want me to come to see your pet? And what I find is that I think my reputation precedes me. I'm in an area where there are animal rehabilitation facilities, but there aren't a whole lot of people doing what I do, and nor have they done it for as long as I've done it. So I am in high demand, and I have to turn some clients away, unfortunately, based on distance, because sometimes that travel fee doesn't make it worth my while. Massachusetts is a fairly small state, at least the metro area, and so it doesn't take long before I can get myself to Connecticut or to New Hampshire or Vermont, and so those are really my limits based on my licensure, and so that keeps my radius fairly small as well. But yeah, so with regards to fees, I set a fee based on my consultation, and then I set a fee based on any follow-up. Obviously, the follow-up takes a lot less administrative time. And I try to, even when I do raise my rates, I try to maintain a reasonable fee for my long-term clients, those who I've seen for longer term, or if I've seen multiple pets, down the road. So, I've been doing this for, like 4 or 5 years now, mobile. And so I've seen some clients and I've seen multiple pets of theirs, and I've seen some of their pets pass away, and then I see the next one that comes through the household. So trying to maintain things in a reasonable way for them, but also reasonable for me and for my time.
Yeah, I think it has to be worthwhile for both parties. So you can't undercharge, and I think that's one of the things that people tend to do, is that they're always scared to charge, but you got to charge for your time, even if you're sitting in traffic, something. Otherwise, by the end of the day, you've seen 3 cases and you've been driving for 4 hours. Then it's not worthwhile. Do you have any advice to give any of our younger colleagues that are coming into the veterinary rehabilitation field that are thinking about opening up a mobile clinic? Is there anything that you'd like to tell them? So maybe something that you've learned over the last 5 years.
I'll tell you what, I've been a physio for a long time, and I've been in this field for a long time, but I would not, I value most of all, I would never go into a mobile practice without having experience in a clinical practice. That's just me. I know that as a new grad physio, I didn't know everything coming out of school. I couldn't work independently straight out of school. And I think even after doing certification or doing my training, I needed that team of colleagues to work with. And whether they were other animal physios or veterinary specialists, I think what we learn from each other is invaluable, and you can't put it in writing, and you can't put it in a book, and you can't put it in a video. It's definitely something that's needed to learn hands-on, day to day. I was very fortunate. I think when I first started working in animal rehab, I worked with these 2 veterinary specialists, these orthopedists, initially. And then when I moved to the Boston area, I was in a very large specialty clinic. And so I was working with internists, oncologists, dermatologists, you name it. And so many things that I learned. It really influences so much of what I do in the field, and how I'm able to screen my patients and know what's appropriate for me to be seeing and what's not appropriate for me to be seeing. So I think it's challenging for a human physio to make the transition to work in veterinary medicine. And I think for veterinarians who are looking for physios to work with them, it's challenging for them too, financially, but also the fact that we have a different way of practicing, we have a different way of communicating, we have a different language, and different expectations of how things work or how things should work. And so I think to learn that, that's really enhanced quite a bit of my relationship with veterinarians now and veterinary technicians and nurses, understanding what they do day to day, what I can do to help them. It's truly an invaluable experience. And financially, it's a challenge for a physio to start to work in a veterinary clinic. I know the physios coming out now, the loans that they have here in the U.S. From graduate school, from their doctoral degrees, are huge. They're ridiculous. And so somehow making it work, whether it's doing a blended experience working with animals and working with people, to maintain that, it could be financially feasible. It certainly could take quite a bit of time, but could really enhance that process before going mobile and before going more independent. I still find that I have great relationships with the veterinarians that I worked with, especially here in the Boston area, and I'm able to get them on the phone or text them or send them pictures or videos and get their opinions on things. They may not be in the room next door. I may not be able to drag them in to actually put their hands on the patient, but, I can do the next best thing, and share with them, what I'm seeing in the home. And I hope that it's opening their eyes to what's really happening, making them a little bit more aware of what the home environment really does look like, what restriction looks like to the owner versus to the veterinarian. That's a restricted activity. It's really eye-opening for them too.
Yeah, I mean, it can get quite lonely out there when you're doing mobile and you're by yourself. And I mean, I can remember when I qualified as a vet, I went into quite a big practice. And, when I first qualified, before I actually went into this practice, the first thing I did was do a locum in South Africa, and it was a one-man practice. And I thought, no, I've got this. I've just qualified. And I must say it was really daunting being on my own and, not having any support or anyone. And luckily, I had friends of mine who obviously just qualified. So I was on the phone to them all the time asking, what do you think? Am I on the right track here? And I think it's the same for us, when we qualify, whatever way in which we get into the field of veterinary rehabilitation. Starting off when you're on your own, you actually learn so much from other people. So yeah, it is a challenge being on your own and can be a little bit lonely.
Absolutely. I find that I have my group of physios that are in the human clinic that I might even, say, hey, I have this case. Just ignore the fact that they have fur, not hair. And, let me tell you about it and see what ideas they come up with for me. I have an amazing group of PTs that I've known for years here in the States who I get on the phone with every so often. And, sometimes to talk about clinical things, but other times just to talk about life and, and juggling it all. And then, those veterinary specialists who I respect incredibly, they have their own experiences and can certainly teach me always, every day. So it can get lonely. It's nice to have podcasts like this to listen to in the car when you're in traffic and, wondering what I need to listen to or who I need to talk to, at that moment, or just enjoy the silence, and peace in it all. So.
Yeah, and obviously we also have the Facebook community, our veterinary rehabilitation small animal community. So there's a great community there. So those of you that do find yourselves alone and feeling a bit lonely in practice, you can always share your cases with there. We've got a great community of vet rehabbers, and they'll share their advice, they'll comment. And Amie, I see you're very active on the group too. So thanks always for all your input in all the questions that people ask.
It's a lot of fun. I think it's so interesting to that world is getting bigger and bigger. I think for such a long time here in the States, we were very focused on, the 2 certification programs and what you learned in one certification or learned in another and sharing amongst each other. Now, the world is so much bigger and, we're learning so much from each other. It's interesting seeing some of these issues circle back around. Over and over again. I feel like I still have a lot to learn, but I feel like I'm a mentor at the same time.
You really are.
Experiences. So, but we all have an area of expertise and something that we can share with the rest. And I think to not hold back and to keep an open mind and continue to share. We're just going to improve our own practices as well as the field.
Yeah, I must say every day I'm in that group, I learn something from someone, and whether it's somebody who's just recently graduated to someone with loads of experience. So yeah, it's an awesome group. So I'll put the link in the podcast notes for those of you that would like to join that aren't members of that Facebook group. It's completely free. It's an international group. I think we have people from 53 different countries now. So yeah, it's amazing. Really, really cool. So Amie, now you've been chatting about your mobile clinic, but now there's lots of changes happening in your life. Tell us what's happening in Amie's life in the next few months.
Oh my, it's always exciting around here. So, my husband of 18 years, God bless him, he's an amazing person, but he was offered an opportunity to work in the Netherlands for 3 years. And us being as we are, we said, you know what, we may never have this opportunity again. Let's do it. And he said, well, do you want to stay here in the States and continue to grow your practice, or do you want to come over with me? And I said, oh my gosh, there's no way I could have a family function long distance like that. So my daughter and I are joining him in August in The Hague. And what is really interesting about this is that for years I've advised clients and even colleagues and other professionals online or on the phone, sharing videos, video chatting. Hey, let me sit in on a session with you. We'll do a Zoom call. And now this is pushing the envelope in that direction. I've made the decision that I don't want to just drop what I'm doing here and go and work in a physio clinic there and just, kind of do the day-to-day. I want to maintain the momentum that I have in my practice. And so I'm going to actually do quite a bit more virtually, both teaching as well as consulting with other professionals as well as clients, not just my existing clients, but also other clients throughout the world. It's challenging, as you've experienced. It takes a bit of patience. It's like an out of body experience. It's tough, and I wouldn't even call it physio because physio is with my hands. Physio, I'm present physically. And so it's more like a mobility consultation or, kind of a rehabilitation, consulting distance based. And so I'm doing more and more of that now, and then finding that will probably be the primary thing that I do come these next 3 years while I'm overseas. I'm hoping to also do a bit more teaching. I've taught quite a bit in the past, and I was on a bit of a hiatus raising my family, but I think, I'm ready to jump right back in and share my experiences, both hands-on and in the classroom as well. So I'm just kind of taking a little left turn with regards to my practice and, finding that I can help people in other ways. I find too that my network of colleagues is pretty huge. Like you said, that even that Facebook group of 53 countries, helping clients find practitioners in their area, finding clinicians who have specific areas of expertise. I think that that's a service that we can provide our clients and just in general the population of pet owners.
Yeah, I mean, I love this idea of sort of an online mobility clinic. I mean, because I remember when I was in practice and, when things were busy, I had a 3-week waiting list. And, you'd get these emails or phone calls from these desperate people. And I mean, at times I had people in other countries phoning me. They had no veterinary rehab therapist near them, or even in their country. And they had a pet, which is part of the family, and they needed help. And, there's a lot that we can offer just over the phone and just looking at the environments, especially if you do it online. And, I used to try and help these people, but it really was juggling, with my clinic. And I remember just sending them like some of my info sheets on some exercises. And then they would obviously, email back and say they don't quite understand how to do it from so I mean, I'd have to then hop on a Skype call and quickly show them on a dog. And so, I mean, this is so much that you can offer. So I think for all the vet rehab therapists out there that have, people that are trying to book appointments and they realize, oh no, they're too far or they can't come, you'd be a great person for them to refer to, especially just to help with those arthritic dogs that have mobility issues. You'll be able to obviously with the client go around their whole house. They can carry their phone and you could do it on their phone. They can show you their stairs and all of that, and you could advise. And sometimes just that little bit of help that they could get just for improving the environment makes such a massive difference in that pet's life.
Absolutely. I think, it's amazing what we can do with technology today. And I find that, there are exercise videos online and you can find this protocol or that protocol and things can be fairly generic. But when it comes right down to it, having that lay person, having that pet owner put their hands on their pet and comparing it to this pet in this video online that is completely different looking and feeling and has different aches and pains, it's really not, it can't lead to the best result. Obviously the best result is that in-person, hands-on consultation, but when that's not possible, being able to fill that need and fill that void. I almost look at being a coach for the owner and, coaching them through the exercise program, coaching them through the whole process. Just like mobile therapy, it's not just that Zoom call or that Skype call. There's so much effort put into the before, put into the after. It's really a whole package. And, I don't think that it's something we can, do so cheap and easy. It really does take a lot of time and effort to do it the right way by the client. I appreciate when other clinicians say, okay, yeah, I can do a virtual consult on top of my own practice. But again, it's the time, the effort, that goes into it to really make it worthwhile and to make it of value and beneficial to everyone involved. I found a lot of value, not just in consulting with clients, but also with other practitioners. I think so many times, even working in the clinic, I was the only physio in the clinic. And to have someone look over my shoulder and see what I see, feel what I feel, and to give me some other ideas, I think would have been extremely valuable as a new therapist, as a new physio. And so that's something that I've had a lot of fun doing in that mentorship role and that educator role in, especially with newer clinicians or, with challenging cases, let's take a look. Let's see how things are going in your treatment session. And maybe I can give you some new ideas and help you to modify your plan or to elevate it in a certain way and teach you a new technique that can help this pet, but maybe others in the future as well. So it's kind of a nice little bridge between that virtual consult and education in the classroom, where we're actually having that hands-on application of new techniques that you might have learned in a course.
I mean, so basically you're a support structure. You're there for support for pet owners and even for vet rehab therapists
Absolutely.
that are just, maybe on their own, just looking for some support with tricky cases or just in general. That's awesome. Amie, we'll put, for those of you that are interested, we'll put Amie's web address in the notes.
Perfect.
Amie, it's been so great talking to you. I feel like I could just I've got loads of other questions that I want to ask you, but we're running out of time now. So we'll have to get you back on. And we've got learning from Amie to look forward to. She's got a few lectures coming up later on the year and at the Vet Rehab Summit. So that's going to be absolutely awesome. Thanks for agreeing to do those, Amie.
Perfect.
And just thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Actually, one more plug, and this is, again, a way for me to light a fire under my own feet. Following your footsteps, I'm launching a podcast come fall. And the way I'm looking at this podcast as being a educational tool for pet owners, but also a great marketing tool for animal physio practitioners and clinicians in animal rehab. It's called Pause, Push, Play, and it's an animal rehabilitation podcast. The pause is kind of that rest and restriction. The push is that manual work that we do. And the play is really getting back to sport and getting back to life. And so I'm going to bring on some experts in our field and have conversations with them in this podcast. I'm really looking forward to learning more from them as well. So look for it.
Be sure to share the iTunes link in the Facebook group as soon as you publish your first one. I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
Awesome, Amie. Have an awesome day.
You too. Thank you so much, Megan. Have a great day.
Cheers. Vet Rehabbers, thanks for listening to my podcast. Don't forget to click the subscribe button, and it would be great if you could leave me a review. I want to know, what are you doing on the 15th to the 17th of November? It is our Vet Rehab Summit, which is our online virtual conference for veterinary rehab professionals. Find out more information at onlinepethealth.com.